This is the TSG Multimedia Podcast for January of 2021. We're sponsored this month by Soundtraxx, Podomatic, and the TSG Train Crew on Patreon. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year, everyone. I'm your host, John Bogatiuk, and it's the start of another new year. I have news from December, a few updates on some of the upcoming programs, and some great photos in our Catch of the Month segment where I feature your photos. I also have a pretty cool announcement I want to talk about right now. That is, the channel went over 40,000 subscribers. I predicted December 29th on last month's podcast, and guess when it happened? December 30th. I guess I almost knew what I was talking about when I made that prediction. Thanks so much for your continued support. It's an honor to reach this milestone, and I'm looking forward to 50,000 sometime in 2021. But for now, let's just enjoy 40,000 for the next month. I'm running a 40% off everything sale on the TSG Multimedia website. That's tsgmultimedia.com on the internet. This website has all the productions that have ever been commercially released from TSG Multimedia on DVD, Blu-ray, or digital download, and they're all 40% off through the end of January. So if you've been waiting to get one of these things, a DVD, Blu-ray, or digital download, now's a great time to do it. When you reach the checkout part of your purchase, enter the code YouTube40K and the discount will be applied. If it doesn't work with all caps like it is on the screen, try it in lowercase. One of those two will work. One more housekeeping thing that I want to mention is to please remember to hit the thumbs up icon to register your support of what you're watching. It helps the channel become more visible to other viewers, and it lets me know that you appreciate what we're doing here. Comments are also always welcome, even if it's just to say, hey, thanks for the show. Now let's go to George from Soundtraxx and see what he has for us this month. Okay, so I have George dialed up on the computer here. Hello, George. How's it going?
Hey, guys. Doing well. Keeping busy, and I'll tell you what, we're recording this before the holidays, and man, it's crazy, and that's a good thing, but looking forward to some vacation time.
Vacation is always good.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you have for us this month?
Well, this month we can talk about, we've actually been really busy at Soundtraxx this summer. Everybody's focused on all the negative stuff that happened this year. Let's take a look at some of the positives that we've done. This summer, we've announced several different new board formats to add to the Tsunami 2 product line to really help make it more versatile and more acceptable and for the model railroader. So just to start with, we've actually added a PNP 8, which is the 8-function board format. This is a board replacement that drops into most of our popular HO diesels. And it has 8 functions, and it's available in all the different diesel formats. Alco, GE, Baldwin, and others. And then we have 2 EMDs. We have EMD and then a second EMD. And the second EMD is just a collection of some of the more obscure versions of the prime movers, the 567, the 645, and the 710. But the original EMD, which is what we've had for since the inception of this Tsunami 2, really is the most versatile version of it and the most universal. But take a look at our website at soundtraxx.com. Go to the sound selection references next to the manuals, and you'll be able to see a list of each of the prime movers that are available on each decoder. But we started off with the PNP 8. Then we announced the 21P NEM 8, which is an 8-function 21P NEM decoder. Now this fits directly into those 21-pin motherboards that are inside a lot of our popular models, as well as you can get a motherboard from our friends at Athearn, or there's a product out there called Nick's Decoder Buddy that is a motherboard that has the 21-pin plug right on it. So you can wire all that in and then use the 21P NEM 8 to access all those lights. Now, one of the advantages of our 8-function decoders, as we've talked about, is that every one of those lighting effects every one of our lighting outputs can be configured for any lighting effect. So whether it's a Mars lights, gyro lights, rotary beacons, strobes, and even some of our new lights, including a second pulse strobe, which will do the flashes of the lights out of sync with each other so that you get a really cool lighting effect. And yes, that took a lot of practice to be able to do the.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you, I'm over here watching it, just very impressed with how you did that out of sync and then in sync, and then it went the other direction, just like they do in real life.
It took a lot of practice to be able to do that, but yet I still can't juggle.
I didn't know how talented you were.
But anyway, so that's one of the new ones. We also have another lighting effect that is a on-off constant dim, and then you can use a CV to adjust the brilliance. And that's one of my favorites, John, as you've seen with some of my modern BNSF stuff, where I've got number boards and class lights, truck lights and walkway lights, all those things. I can dim the lights and adjust the brilliance with just a CV. So it really makes it more fun.
It's especially good on the number boards.
Yeah. And I mean, the number boards, that's the thing, is that some of the other competitors' products out there, you don't have that independent adjustment. So in order to make those lights dim, you have to use different value resistors or add resistors to a pre-regulated board. Otherwise, those step lights look like headlights coming down the track or in the number boards. And so you really want to have that ability to adjust with a CV. So that's one of our, hyperlight effects. And just here's your trivia for the day. The word hyperlight is a harken back to our first product as a company called the Hyperlight. It was the first processor-driven lighting module in model railroading and allowed you to cut a trace on a circuit board, and that then would determine what the lighting effect was, whether it was a Mars light or gyro lights or any of the above. So we've really come a long way, but of course, that being our first product, we keep the tradition and the name alive today in our current products called the Hyperlights.
Very cool.
So moving into some of the other different board formats that we've announced, we've talked about our TSU KN1. This is our new N-scale Kato wide-body drop-in decoder. And we're really excited about this because this is the first foray into N-scale drop-in. And if you can take a look and see how clean that installation is, you can't beat that. And with a nice small speaker that fits perfectly right there in the body, this speaker is amazing how loud it is, being in its size. So with the TSU KN1, you get the decoder board, the speaker baffle, 2 LEDs for your headlight and backup light, and you get some speaker wire and Kapton tape for the insulating. And this KN1 is good not just for the F-Series units in the Kato product line, but you can also put them in the E-Series units, the Alco PAs, the EMD F40 PH, and the P42s. So we're really excited about that. Because now we've got a viable drop-in. We've been asked by many modelers for years in N-scale, please, we need some quality sound in N-scale. So we have it now, and this is our first step. So we've got more to come. We have another board format that will be announced here in the next week or so, so make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to our website, soundtraxx.com, and find the subscribe to newsletter and sign up so you can be the first to know the next decoder board that we've got coming down the line. But with all of that, we've got some other things that we've been talking about behind the scenes and some other additions to our product line to really help round it out and make it a whole whole product line to really give the Tsunami 2 the dues that it needs and be able to fit much better into many more models.
Yeah, something else that you released that I thought was pretty cool was that other current keeper, the one with the different configuration.
Right. I did forget about that, our current keeper 2. So it's a shorter but fatter version of our original current keeper. So if you don't have the length of space to be able to put it, you can put the shorter version of it in and fit it into some of those tight fit applications. Absolutely. I did forget about that.
Yeah, that was a cool release that I was kind of excited about. I haven't had a chance to use any of those things because I've been, it's funny with all this virus stuff and everything else that's been going on. I've managed to stay busy, but it requires more editing. So I haven't had a chance to do much modeling this year.
Gotcha.
What are you going to do?
Take a vacation.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of excited about those N-scale decoders, though, because it's not just a decoder. It comes with everything you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty cool.
And it's in a Tsunami 2 product line, so it's not a pared down or a dumbed down decoder just to fit it in. It's a full Tsunami 2, so you get all of the cool Tsunami 2 features that we've been talking about, John, here on your podcast, as well as on our personal YouTube channel at soundtraxx.com. Or you can search YouTube for Soundtraxx videos.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about a lot, and you now get that access in N-Scale. So we're really excited as we move forward into N-Scale drop-ins. So be sure you subscribe. We've got more to come.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Is there anything happening in 2021? Because as this is coming out, it's going to be on the first Saturday of the new year. So is there anything you can talk about that's going to be happening in 2021 that's exciting?
Not that I can talk about, but we do have a lot of stuff that's coming down the line. So you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter.
Sure. Stuff in the works, right? Yeah, having stuff in the works is always exciting.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the one is so close that I know the Saturday that this podcast will post is going to be extremely close, that I almost feel like I can say it, but I just make sure you subscribe to the newsletter.
Well, I mean, you got to have some reason to subscribe to the newsletter. Well, I want to take just a minute, though, to thank you, George, and to thank Soundtraxx, because 2020, having the sponsorship for most of the year really helped out a lot. And I'm hoping that it helped you guys out as much as it helped us out here. So thank you very much for that. And I'm looking forward to a much better 2021.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of your viewers using the code, so we definitely appreciate that, and it definitely does help for both of us because it sees that we're getting the reach we need, and also we know that your viewers are supporting us as well, so that's great.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a quality product, made in the U.S. I mean, it's hard to get better than that.
Oh, absolutely. And, we're very proud of the Made in the USA. Hopefully when all this stuff opens up again and everybody's allowed to travel freely, we do invite everybody to come to Durango and see our facility. We manufacture all of our stuff in-house, including several testing procedures along the way to help make sure that decoder works right the first time, including a hand test by our technicians to make sure that decoder functions properly before it's put in the package. Now, of course, there's always things like it could be exposed to some unusual weather, stuff like that, in this meantime. But we go to great lengths. We've got special machines to test everything, and then we dedicate our technicians to do a hand test. So everything's there to make sure we have quality product, and we do endurance tests with all of our components during the engineering phase. We have an engineering lab and a full-time engineering team that's in there doing the testing, making sure the components work, and we do a lot of our testing in-house to make sure everything's going to work so that you get it working the first time.
Yeah. It's cool, too. One of our mutual friends, James Wright, made a trip down to Durango. Mm-hmm. And I would like to do a similar trip and get a similar type of tour where we can make a video showing people. And, the other thing is that I think is really cool is that, you go through all the quality control measures that you do, which I think is really important. But on the off chance that somebody does get something that's not working properly for some reason, it's as simple as just calling you. And chances are you're the guy that's going to answer the phone.
Yeah, there's a great 0 chance that you'll get me. And but we're very proud of this. Customer service is a very big factor, especially with me. They always say the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, when you contact us at Soundtraxx and you try to get support, whether it's technical help, how do I fix this CV or how do I adjust this feature, we give every email and every phone call the attention it deserves because we do want to make sure that you enjoy your experience with Soundtraxx. You're not going to get a voicemail that's going to be ignored or anything like that. But I will say that at the moment we are a little short-staffed, so we're doing our best and staying on top of it. So we do appreciate that, but it's very important to us, and we want to make sure that you're enjoying it. And to help with some of that, we kind of alluded to this earlier, where we've been posting videos on our YouTube channel every week now for 3 years, focusing on features of the Tsunami 2 decoder and all the things it can do. We've done installation videos. We've done a webinar series, which really focuses on not just Soundtraxx products, but other things that you're going to need to know when it comes to DCC, the digital hobby, how to use your command station. There's even one that's just teaching you how to solder professionally. So we want to make sure that you enjoy your experience. We feel education is a big factor of it, and we try to put as much of it out there as we can. So we definitely encourage your viewers to watch the webinar series to learn more, not just about the Soundtraxx Tsunami 2, but about everything digital. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions going on in the world of digital, and we are there to try to help, answer those and show what's really happening so that our fellow modelers are not afraid to use their DCC systems.
Yeah, I think it adds to the enjoyment of the hobby when you're actually able to use things that work and things work, because there's no frustration. I put it on the track and I turn the knob and nothing happens. It's like, well, you did it wrong.
Right.
Somebody who's new doesn't know.
Yeah. And I mean, the hard part is we can't see the DCC signal. When we were using DC analog, we can take a multimeter and put the leads on the track and see the voltage on the rails. And so we can know what that model is supposed to be doing. With a digital, we can't do that. So there's a whole lot of mystery and mystique going on behind. And in one of our webinars, we show the little green man behind the curtain of what he's doing and the little ones and zeros and what their purposes are, so that way, once you understand what's happening, now you can push the buttons with that confidence to know that this is how it works.
Right. Makes sense to me. Now, you mentioned a minute ago, George, that people have been using the code, which makes me feel better because I've been kind of harping on that. People need to know to use the code. Are we going to continue using the code
Yes.
again this month? Okay, cool.
Yep. As of right now, I have not been told otherwise. So we're going to continue using the TSG 15 for your greatest viewers on YouTube.
That's the ones. Well, I call them the best viewers on YouTube, but they're the greatest too.
Yeah. Six of one, above the other.
Yeah, to me, they're both. So, well,
right.
Happy New Year. Like I said, I'm really glad that we're able to continue doing this, and looking forward to hopefully getting it together in person, sometime this year, probably later in the year, according to the things I've been reading, but it'll be good either way.
Not soon enough.
Right. Exactly. Cool. Well, thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're on your vacation right now, so I'm going to let you go, and we'll catch up with you hopefully in next month.
All right. Sounds good, John. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, George. It sounds like Soundtraxx has a lot of cool things in store for 2021. I want to take a moment to thank Soundtraxx for sponsoring this channel for most of last year. Their support helped us get through a very rough year and added something to look forward to every month. If you like these segments I do with George, please be sure to use the code TSG15 that they've been nice enough to provide to us when you place your order on their website. It gets you 15% off, and at the same time, it also lets them know that you appreciate their sponsorship of this channel. Now, I do realize that a lot of people prefer to patronize their local train shops, right? Because they want it to stay in business. And a lot of us only order their decoders from online retailers that we're accustomed to ordering stuff from, right? And I get that. I know a lot of my friends right here where I live will always go to Dennis at the train shop in Santa Clara for their model train stuff too. There's nothing better than spending some relaxing time browsing in person, and it's good to have that kind of thing, brick and mortar shops around. But I have more good news. You can still let Soundtraxx know that you're seeing their products on this show by calling or sending a quick email to them saying that you enjoy the Soundtraxx segment on the TSG Multimedia Podcast every month. I'd appreciate that a lot, and it lets them know that they're sponsoring the right channel. On the subject of supporting the channel, I'd like to take a moment to let all of the new viewers on the channel know that TSG Multimedia has a Patreon page that lets you help bring the content that you enjoy to the public. You might have heard me talk about the TSG Train Crew on some of the videos here. That's what I refer to our Patreon supporters as, the TSG Train Crew. The address is patreon.com/TSG Multimedia, and you can join the TSG Train Crew for as little as $2 a month. It's like 7 cents a day. I realize it doesn't sound like much, and it isn't really, but if enough people do it, it can add up, and it helps us a lot when it comes to keeping the lights on around here. It also helps with travel expenses and equipment that's necessary to make the shows that you like to watch. So in return, you also get behind the scenes information about events that we're covering, as well as early access to the programs that you enjoy here on this channel on a special channel that I've created just for patrons. And when I say early access, I mean that sometimes the sneak previews come months ahead of when a program is released to the general public here. And that's just part of the sneak preview perk. The other part is that the previews are usually in 4K ultra high definition with no ads. Pretty good for $2, right? Members at the higher levels also get branded merchandise like TSG Train Crew coffee mugs and t-shirts. The most important perk is that the channel continues to operate and bring the content that you love to the world. I started developing this podcast program this past weekend by watching last year's January podcast. It was weird to hear about all the great plans I had that basically went up in smoke when the pandemic started back around March. But we did get a chance to at least start on some of those plans, and in addition to that, a lot of great things happened in 2020 that I think are worth reviewing. So for example, last January, my friend Alvin came out to California from Salt Lake City for a visit. And while he was here, we went to check out a few model layouts, as well as some of the other railroading things in my area, like the California State Railroad Museum and Roaring Camp. We also got to do some rail fanning, and I even made a Chasing Trains episode about the visit. You can see that here on the channel if you search for Fabio Goes to California, I think is what I called it. That was a highlight for January. And toward the end of the month, we had a live stream from the California State Railroad Museum where our layout design and operations special interest groups were holding their annual meet. Also in January, I got to chase the rail grinder at night with my friend Kevin. And I got to say, that late night excursion was the last notable event for January. But it provided some very dramatic video for the channel. And it was also something that I had never seen before. So that was pretty cool. In February, we featured a special event at the Niles Canyon Railway where they ran not one, but two special freight steam trains. And we also held a TSG Crew Lounge live from the Santa Clara Depot, which would end up being the last one that we got to do in person for the year. And as a matter of fact, it's still the last time we got to do one in person because the next month was when the pandemic started. So March was a bit of an upheaval, I think, for most people because we all got to find out about something called COVID-19. And I don't think anyone knew at the time how long this would be drawn out. And we still don't, actually. Although, from what I've been reading, there could be a light at the end of the tunnel sometime later this year. I'm estimating probably sometime toward the end of summer. I mean, just to be conservative about it. In any case, the virus put a stop to all in-person production of videos that we had planned for the year. And the uncertainty over when it would be safe to get out again made it very difficult to make any further plans or to reschedule things that were already planned. I was pretty lucky because all the activities from 2019 and early 2020 had produced enough content for the channel to get through about July as far as putting content out on the channel. April was a bit of a transition month. We didn't really do any in-person events, but we did get to learn all about Zoom and WebEx and other virtual meeting platforms. I conducted the first ever TSG live shelter-in-place stream that was a lot of fun. Moreover, it was the introduction to a regular live show on the channel. Prior to this, I had only gone live on rare and usually unscheduled occasions. I mean, especially if you don't count the Crew Lounge series. So in May, I started doing regular monthly TSG Train Crew virtual hangouts with my Patreon supporters. That was pretty cool because it gave us a chance to get to know each other as well as having special guests on for live interviews. The virtual hangouts have become something that I look forward to each month, and we've been doing them ever since. Something else that happened, the Santa Cruz Portland Cement number 2, also known as the Chiggin, was moved to the Placerville and Sacramento Valley Railroad in Folsom, California around this same time. This is a pretty big deal because that organization has never run steam on their line. I have my fingers crossed that the engine will get to run later this year. Also, the Niles Canyon Railway announced that they had acquired SP 260 number 1744 for future use on their line. That's also a pretty big deal because of the relevance and fit of that locomotive into their operation plan. The other thing that happened in May was more on a personal level. I tried my hand at weathering freight cars, for the first time, and that was a lot of fun. June brought us more video conferences, another TSG live shelter-in-place episode, and one short trip to Roaring Camp to document when the Shea number 1, the Dixiana, got its new builder's plate installed. Also something you don't see every day. July was generally more of the same, video conferences, but we also started the Catch of the Month segment on this podcast. That's where viewers send in their photos of train catches, and then they get them featured here on the podcast. August was a bit unusual, as I was interviewed not once or twice, but 3 times. Also, our top secret producer was interviewed with me on one of those occasions. It was fun to be on the other side of the camera for a change, and I really enjoyed being able to share my story with other people that way. We got out to chase trains late that month, and I have an episode of Chasing Trains sitting in the can, as they call it, waiting to be released until some other things are resolved. My friends at Silicon Valley Lines held their first official remote operating session that ended up being an episode of Model Railroading 101. That was something really cool that I had never seen before. I don't think any of us really had at that point. September saw the creation of a regular call-in talk show format program for live streams here on the channel. I was also able to get out and document some unusual flat car loads that were being moved in Watsonville on the St. Paul and Pacific Railroad, and again on the Union Pacific Local that moved the cars out of Watsonville. That was also really cool. October saw this channel go over 9 million views, a pretty significant milestone. We also took a short trip out to Mariposa to document 2 layouts and a caboose room. Remember that? We were able to resume the TSG Live Crew Lounge series by utilizing an online platform that allows me to stream video conferences straight to YouTube as well. This is a great development, by the way, because it will allow us to have people from anywhere in the world participate as panelists on the Crew Lounge shows. I'm seriously thinking about continuing the online virtual Crew Lounge format for these programs even after the pandemic ends and we're able to meet in person again. I think we'll do the in-person ones as well, but I want to do the online ones simply because it allows us to bring in experts, really, like I said, from anywhere in the world. And, that's something that's really cool. Also in late October, we went to ride the beach train from Felton to Santa Cruz and then back again for the first time ever. As long as I've been a regular visitor to Roaring Camp, when we're talking well over a decade, I'd never ridden that train. I documented it from various places along the line and even rode in the cab of one of the CF7s on a regular freight run way back when they were still carrying freight to and from Santa Cruz. But I'd never actually ridden the tourist train known as the beach train, so that was really cool. We were also able to get to Santa Cruz to see the newly redesigned Fern Creek and Western Garden Railroad in October. That was especially cool because that layout had undergone months of work and was rebuilt from the ground up. So also in late October, we saw the release of the most viral video I've ever had on the channel to date. The one with Jack Burgess talking about logging inclines of the Yosemite Lumber Company. It's still on fire, albeit not as hot as it was for the first month and a half that it was out. But you need to see that one if you haven't already watched it. Logging inclines are very interesting feats of engineering, and it kind of shows a can-do attitude that seems lost nowadays. Silicon Valley Lines held their first ever virtual open house in November. This was a unique event where virtual visitors were allowed to run trains on the layout from anywhere in the world. I know that I had no plans to run a train, but when I saw it in action, I made a donation and ran a train remotely too, and it was a lot of fun. Also in November, I started having regular co-hosts for the live call-in talk shows that I talked about a minute ago. This might be on Jeopardy someday, so write it down. Michelle Kempema was the first ever guest co-host for that program. So that brings us up to December. On the 5th, we went to ride the beach train again. It was really just an excuse to make a delivery of some custom shirts that I designed and had printed for the Fern Creek and Western crew for use at a future open house. The next day, we headed out to Niles Canyon to catch a special steam freight train that they were running in order to raise funds for the 1744 restoration project. It was the last chance of the year we had to get out and do something, as all Bay Area counties were forced to shut down due to a rise in COVID infections. On Thursday the 10th, I had James Wright co-host the live call-in talk show. We talked about models, product reviews, model manufacturers in general, and we also took a lot of calls. I did an interview for Vinny on the YouTube channel BNSF 6951 on the 18th, and you can see that on his channel if you haven't already seen it. On the 19th, the TSG Train Crew virtual hangout was with my friend Glenn Sutherland. He's the guy with the Sierra 1923 layout and that caboose room we talked about earlier. This virtual hangout will most likely be released as a video on the channel sometime in 2021. I like hearing people's stories about how they come to do the interesting things that they do, and Glenn has a great story. December's activities for me culminated with the TSG Live Crew Lounge episode about modular model railroading that streamed last Sunday. That was an interesting show, and it added to some of the motivation that I've been lacking to do something with the 2x4 module that I've had sitting around for the past 2 or 3 years, or maybe 4. Maybe I'll actually do something with it in 2021. I'm not going to make any promises except this. If I get around to working on it, I will be sure to share that with you here on the channel. I am so done with 2020 that I made this shirt design for Teespring. Check it out. It's presented without further comment. So let's move on to the upcoming program schedule now. This Monday, the 4th, that's right, the day after tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we have our live call-in talk show with my special co-host, Fabio. We're going to talk about the best and worst of 2020, so have your stories ready and call in. Next Friday, which is the 8th, we have a product spotlight. And then on the 9th, it's the next episode of Model Trains Galore. On the 15th, we have another product spotlight. Then on the 16th, Chasing Trains returns, featuring the special freight steam train on the Niles Canyon Railway that I told you about just a few minutes ago. On January 22nd, we have an episode of N-Scale Friday. And then on the 23rd, Model Railroading 101 returns. In this episode, I'll show you some of the techniques that I've been experimenting with to weather my N-Scale rolling stock. On January 24th, it's the TSG Live Crew Lounge. The topic this month is layout design. On the 29th, it's another product spotlight. And finally, this month has 5 Saturdays. So on the 30th, we have a special release that features the TSG Train Crew virtual hangout that we had a couple months ago with our special guest and Train Crew member, Dave Connery. Dave is a lifelong train guy. He grew up with trains, became a master model railroader, and has been a great mentor to young people, and he has volunteered at Railtown 1897 for over 20 years. He shared some great stories with us, and you get to see them here as an example of one of the perks of being on the TSG Train Crew. And now for the catches of the month. TSG Train Crew member Paul Kruper sent in a couple shots from the Virginia and Truckee's holiday train. These were both taken at Gold Hill. Rowan Kinane sends the following photos from Tasmania, Australia. The first batch features the steam locomotives that are on display at the West Coast Heritage Centre at Zeehan. All these locomotives originally worked in the area during the steam era. Murchison, named after Mount Murchison on the west coast, operated the Emu Bay Railway for all of its working life, and in later years it was modified to burn oil. It was also fitted with smoke deflectors which have been retained for preservation at the museum. According to Rowan, these were very reliable engines, and there's another one at the Don River Railway. The second batch of photos was taken at the Spray Tunnel located a few miles from Zeehan. The tunnel once had a 2-foot gauge railway that used steam power to haul mineral commodities. It is now the location for a picturesque walk, and it also leads to an old mine. Rowan tells me it's definitely worth a visit if you're ever in the area. And finally, these last couple of photos were taken in the village of Latrobe. A railroad used to run right through the center of town, but in the 1980s a bypass was built and the station was eventually demolished. A shopping center has now been built on the site, and it features this painted mural of steam locomotive MA2. It should look pretty familiar because that's the same locomotive that was featured on one of the Catch of the Month segments recently. Thanks to everyone who shared this month. If you have a photo that you'd like to share, please email it to podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. Be sure you own the photo and let me know the what's, whens, and wheres of the shots that you're sharing. So that's about it for 2020. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that I'm glad it's over. I had a lot of plans that got obliterated by the virus. And also, thanks to COVID, my ability to make concrete plans for 2021 is almost non-existent. I'm already counting on having to cancel some of the prospective plans that I have penciled in my calendar for this year. I do think that 2020 proved that we can adapt under bizarre circumstances, though, and it forced me to get better at live streaming, so I guess there's a silver lining I can take away at a personal level at least. I can say for sure that I'm looking forward to being able to get back out and do some of the in-person things that I enjoy in the not-too-distant future, layout tours being chief among those things. So here's to your new year being all that you hope for, and I'll see you next time.